Hello and welcome. We are broadcasting live from Global Nutripreneurs, the premier global gateway and unified operating system transforming the future of the global agri-food economy. Today, the global food system stands at a critical crossroads. While the demand for functional health, wellness, and nutritional security is expanding exponentially, early-stage innovators face massive roadblocks, fragmented supply chains, opaque cross-border regulations, and a staggering volume of unvetted noise that isolates brilliant founders from institutional capital. The cost of this friction isn't just measured in lost revenue. It is measured in the unacceptably high rate of global food waste and systematic nutritional security. Promoted by the Global Council for Agri-Food Trade and Innovation and the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, Global Nutripreneurs was engineered to dismantle these barriers. We are moving decisively past passive business directories. Powered by a robust digital operating system, featuring AI-driven founder mentor matching, automated regulatory compliance hubs, and an integrated virtual deal room, we are systematically transforming high-potential ventures into scalable investment-grade new to business. Our ecosystem operates across 6 integrated strategic pillars, uniting a dedicated global R&D network, shared physical infrastructure via decentralized common facility centers, and ESG-compliant trade and investment marketplace. Right now, our team is executing a massive global pipeline evaluation, reviewing over 10,000 agriculture, food, and nutrition business across more than 150 countries. Our mission is clear: to uncover the elite innovators shaping the next era of wellness, unlock friction-free global market access, and actively drive a 40% reduction in global post-harvest food losses. Today, as part of our Women in Food, Agriculture, and Nutrition Forum series, we are mapping out the blueprints for the agriculture revolution. Joining us is a leader who sits at the very frontier of this transformation. Please welcome to the global stage our guest for today, Dr. Sai Darshini, is a food scientist, entrepreneur, and a research specializing in food product innovation, functional food, sustainable nutrition, and the commercialization of research-driven technologies. As the founder of Zuno Foods and a PhD graduate in food and nutritional sciences from the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, she has built an impactful career at the intersection of academia and entrepreneurship, specializing in clean label, millet-based, and plant-forward products. Dr. Sai Darshini commands the complete product pipeline from formulation and process optimization to sensory analysis, shelf life studies, and cross-border communication strategies. Driven by a vision of improving public health and accelerating global nutrition security, she actively facilitates technology transfers, mentors emerging architect and food startups from proof of concept to market, and champions sustainable practices like food waste, proof of valorization. By combining rigorous scientific validation with paradigmic entrepreneurial execution, she successfully bridges the gap between laboratory research and scalable market-ready business solutions that support both sustainable agriculture and modern consumer wellness. Thank you for joining us today to help share the future of global nutripreneurs. I now request you to kindly proceed with the presentation. Over to you.
Thank you for your kind introduction. So I'm Dr. Sai Darshini. I'm the founder and CEO of Sai Mithya Foods Private Limited, the brand Zuno. So today I'll be talking to you all about how we converted our research lab products into a marketable product.
Yes.
Into a entrepreneurship that can transform the public health. So today I'll be telling you about what we did till now, and the next 5 years, what are we going to do, and how everybody can scale up their research into a commercial product, and how we can support the global entrepreneurship. So moving on. So the first question that triggered us to start this research is the nutrition paradox in India. Globally, it exists, but in India, it's more. So if you see, 70% of women and children are affected with anemia, and that we are the diabetic capital of the world, and lifestyle diseases are rising, and climate changes are also threatens the cultivation of the conventional crops. So this is no longer the challenge of how whether the food is available or not. It's about how the nutritionally we have foods are available. For example, my area of expertise is on millets. Millets are once considered as a poor man's meal. Now it's one of the most premium product in the country. So we want to make the nutrition, and the changes in the crops has happened through the genetical changes that took place over the decades. So we don't get the same nutrition that the ancient people were getting. So we have to work on something that we have to provide the food to all the global community, and not only the elite community, with the same nutrition that everybody should receive. We have to fight the global hunger. That's what triggered us to get into this aspect. So about myself, I have started this research way back in 2019. We saw how the growth of the snack bars, porridges, smoothies in the world. They are the convenience foods which everybody craves for. But however, we don't have them in a place or a format that is friendly to the Indian culture. We have only powder, fruit-based smoothies, or it's all about how a preservative-based and how a foreign community has, but not for the Indian community. That's what triggered us. And we wanted to work on something that is very indigenous and also climate friendly. The place where I worked was in Andhra Pradesh. So in Andhra Pradesh, the growth it's a very deserted area. You don't get every crop growing there. The farmers grow millets over there, and the millets market was very down way back in 2019 until the 2023 International Year of Millets. So we started researching on why the nutritious crop, and once upon a time it was everybody's meal is become expensive, but at the same time people didn't know how to use them because we have lost the habit of using millets. So that's when we it triggered us, okay, we should make in a format that people doesn't require to cook so much and waste their time in exploring how to make them, but at the same time it should be in their meal. That's our target. And therefore we did research on millets. We made different formats of the product. We did a market survey, and we found several consumer groups of protein was one thing which was very popular back then, and it's still. And then balanced nutrition is one thing that we are missing. We have either high fat foods or high salted foods, high sodium foods, but we don't have a balanced meal in any convenience food you take. And we published the papers in a way that we didn't want to keep it in our books. So we published them so that the community can see what we are doing, and we published in all international journals so that we get a recognition across the world. It's not only what the America or the Japan doing; it's the India what's doing currently. And we got several awards from agencies, from international conferences, from research centers like Chelaram Diabetes, and also from the AICT, the Council for the Education. For what we have done, we have tested our products with the chefs. We have done everything that is required to prove that what we do in India is up to the global mark, and we can be the leading people for the we can be the global leaders. We don't have to depend on the foreign imported foods any longer. That's when we thought, why should I end it in the research book? After I finish the research and move out, it should not be stagnant in the research. So we founded Zuno Foods. So this is the one question that changed everything in Zuno Foods. Why are we importing nutritious food? Shouldn't what we grow in India be the most nutritious crops being it? Why are we not utilizing it? Why are we not reaching out to the community? So that's when we started. That changed everything. The way we looked at the convenience foods, the way we looked at any product that we developed. So from how we went from research to a real world, I belong to the Department of Food and Nutritional Sciences from Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. I'm pretty sure that many people wouldn't have heard about our university because we are not top 10 university. But the tier 2 universities, we do good research. And we wanted to prove that what we do, India has most of the tier 2 colleges do better research, and it can go to the world through a better format. And our university founded this incubation center where they incubate all the entrepreneurs for they don't charge us for anything. I got a free education throughout my career, like from my BSc to my PhD. So I got everything free what I have today. Why should I charge the next person who is getting from me? Why should it be expensive for the next person? That was what the only thought I had. So when we founded Mithya Foods, the only motto we had is we should love all and serve all. And we should not be charging everybody for our services. A poor man requires a free service, we will do the free service. When the elite people can afford it, let them afford it. But it should be applicable to everybody. So the turning point was the research projects. We convert them into packet smoothies, porridges, snack bars, thins, mueslis, etc. Now we are in a national forum. We want to go globally that Indian products are the best. And at the same time, what we did is we wanted to replace these whey protein or the plant protein based drinks because those are expensive. A poor man cannot afford a 2000 rupees protein powder. We have to give them what he can eat. So what we made is we made it very convenient for them, and we made it fully plant based, like millets. We mix nuts. We everything has protein in it by nature. So why don't we club few components, the synergy between all the raw materials, and make a protein rich food? That was what we did, and it is reaching out to the globally. When we tell our story, we don't want it to be another story which a startup created. We want them with a validation. So we want to tell the scientific innovations, and the funds which are spent on a research is not to a waste. It's going back to the community from where we started it. So the first takeaway from my experience was, whenever we look at a sustainable food innovation, it's not something that we have to create new every time. It's also about what is already existing from the generations. We should just rebuild it scientifically and prove the community that it is much better and convenient, and it should be replaced with your all other processed foods. And when I tell about processed foods, I don't mean every processed food is a junk, because every method of cooking is a processing method. So when you call it a junk food, it is extremely highly processed. Like you have refined oils, or you have high sugar, you have high in salt, etc. But every product requires processing to extend its shelf life. If I have to export, I have to process them. It has to undergo processing. So what we are doing is to do minimal processing, and we took up all the traditional methods like popping, roasting. These are ancient methods from the Veda books. If you read Vedas, we have been taught Vedas in our university. So we picked up from those, that how we can use our ancient knowledge in the current modern life. So moving on to the next 3 to 5 years, what as a Zonofood CEO or as a researcher, everybody should be looking at is so like how they tell food is a medicine. We should convert every niche claim into a formulation standard. Every company, every food industry should move towards, like, they should publish their research for a better cause. They should ensure that people who eat their food knows what goes inside, how it is processed, what are the methods they're using, and there are several standards that has to be followed. So our research included several modeling techniques. We use AI, we use everything, but AI cannot replace a farmer at the end of the day. So we should also think about how whatever we claim, like if it is AI based, if it is anything that we claim in the current generation, should have a standard, and we should make those standards for the next 3 to 5 years, because that's going to change everything that's happening globally, nationally, because everybody requires good health in the current generation. And second one is like we should focus on the indigenous and climate resistant crops, because climate change is extremely it is going through a rapid change, and we have to contribute to the climate change. And how can we contribute is to make crops that are resilient to the climates. For example, millets, because I am an expert in millets. Millet crops are resilient to any drought. If it's a drought condition, if it's heavy rains affect any crop, but other than that, they don't require any kind of supplement nutrition, or it doesn't require any fertilization. It just grows on barren lands, but it has high quality nutrition. So we should reposition these as not as a like they should be premium, but also should not be positioned at high cost. They should be premium products. People should move from eating red rice and sorry, white rice and wheat, to moving on to this millets or color. Like when we did this survey, like one of my colleague works on different rice varieties in India. We were not even aware of the rice varieties that's grown in our own country. So we want everybody to see what's really happening in India, and how to promote the agriculture of such crops, which can help in resilience of the climate, as well as the growth of the like the nutritional part of the country. Because we are also part of the zero, like we have to contribute to the zero hunger. so many people who starve every day. We have to feed everybody in the country, and we are overpopulated country. How do we feed them? How do we give them a nutritional food? Even if I have to make a product which is convenient, the cost of buying my raw materials are higher than what I want to give. So if it is cultivated throughout the country and if it is cultivated in large quantities, we don't have to go through this. That should be the second thing that we should be looking at the next 3 to 5 years. The third one is personalization, which is a mainstream in the nutrition. It should remain, but it should not be only for the elites. It should be for day to day. So in Zuno Foods, we are also building an app which is helpful for knowing your day to day nutrition. So what we did is we want to give it to free for everybody. Whoever downloads our app, it should be free of cost. We don't want to charge them. Our like for example, Satyasai has a medical center which is free of cost. You do any cardiac surgery or you do anything, that is free of cost. So when we looked at that, when they can give such expensive surgeries for free of cost, an app should not matter. Profit should not be the only thing that we should be looking at as a industry. Definitely money is important, but not money is everything. Something should be done as a benefit to the country. That's what we are thinking. So we will release this app in the next few months, and then we want everybody to have this so that they know what they are eating on a daily basis. See your nutrition. Are you having enough food? Like enough food in the sense, I'm not talking about the quantity of food, the quality of food. So we want to focus on AI-driven formulation, precision fermentation, biofortification of the crops, and make it available and better for everybody. Moving on to how do we scale from a lab to a market product. First one is you should be technically very sound. Before you build the brand, if you are building a food brand, be technically very sound. When I tell technically very sound, it's not only about the formulation and taste that I'm talking about, even about the claims. If you claim it is diabetic friendly, please show people how many clinical trials you have done. How did you arrive at the word that it's good for obesity, or it can help you in weight loss, it can help you in weight gain, be it anything. It should be open and publicly available for people to understand what you're building, and you should be technically sound. Second is solve one problem at a time. Like the nutritional gap is too much. We have malnourishment, we have SAM, a lot of malnutrition and lifestyle diseases. Choose one gap and fill the gap and make it and diversify the market. Don't focus only on the elite markets. Market it like focus on everybody throughout the India, throughout the globe. Even if it's an African country, if it's an American country, they should be able to afford it. So third one is financially. When we price the products, it should be priced on a volume market and not for an elite customer from the day one. Because we are not treating all the people who are already well. You have to treat people who is undergoing something, who is undergoing malnutrition. So that's a large community. So we should our price point should focus on the volume of the market, not based on the elite customers and the profit. And ecosystem and policy is the fourth thing you have to keep in the mind, which is like you should not build alone. You should have partners. In the sense you should have farmers. You take each company should take a land and help the farmers to build what they need. And secondly, you should have be in link with all the government policies. What government is currently doing. Government has so many initiatives for the nutritional development and all the food products or entrepreneurship. So our policies should be the farmers, the scientific universities, the research institutes, as well as the government, all are in the same thing. So that you can build a policy based on all three, and you have a blueprint that is flexible and that is also helpful for all the communities, and it should be a circular ecosystem which will contribute to the circular economy. Therefore, everybody will grow. And lastly, how we will be contributing to the global nutripreneurship, like being a researcher as well as a founder as well as an entrepreneur. I want to tell you that first we can help anybody who's reaching out to us. We can help them in research and formulation. So we can help you develop products or processes or technologies, and we can help you how to build it for the world. Second one is we mentor students. be it a BSc or 12th, or even if you are a graduate or anything, we can help in mentoring them to achieve what they want to achieve, be it scientifically, be it commercially, or be it business. And we would like to partner with other R&D labs or other brands who would like to collaborate with us and work and create a better nutrition and a better ecosystem for everybody to live in, especially for the community which is not reached yet. And we will also help in building the ecosystem that is along with the global entrepreneurs to achieve what world is trying to achieve. It's not only about what India is trying to achieve, what each country want to achieve, and how we can contribute to growth of every country in the world. So for further information, or if you want to connect with us, if you want to work with us, this contact informations, please do connect with us on this, so that we can work further on what we can do together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saidarshini, for sharing your valuable insights with the global Nutripreneur community. That was an engaging and thought-provoking presentation. I'd now like to ask you a few questions that dig deeper into your experience and perspective.
Yes.
Okay, so you've successfully navigated the entire pipeline from advanced academic research at SSS IHL to market-ready commercialization with Zuno Foods. As Global Nutripreneurs build out its digital operating system to scale early-stage ventures, how can we structurally standardize this lab-to-market transition so that brilliant science-backed research doesn't get trapped in academia but rapidly reaches global consumer markets?
First is researchers also should have an open-minded thing that our research should reach the global community, and it should not be like I want the patent to myself. Like both the research community also should come out of their cubicle that no, what I do should, like, somebody else will steal my idea. That should be out, and think that even if somebody steals and does it, it's for good for the community. It's not only for making money. So that should be the first thing. Secondly, you should have a partners in the sense you should have like connect to all the mentors possible. I had like 3 mentors. Like I would, it's worth mentioning that one is Murthy, NLS Murthy. His name is, he's a country head of a big company called as Greenway Health. So he was the first one who told me that your research is worth doing as an entrepreneurship. Why don't you continue it? Why do you want to just sit back? So such kind of mentors are very important in transition from a lab to the market. So don't leave those mentors. Their advice will help you to go a long way. And there was one other mentor called as Manish Sharma, who was also into the health sectors. He also said nutrition is something that's lacking in the world. So why don't you? So these people, like the mentors, we meet randomly in our life. You just share your thoughts about what you do. They will give you an perspective from the world, whether it is worth doing it. And such mentors are important. Second thing is, you should reach out to people, everybody. You should reach out anybody who comes across you and tell them, see, this is what I'm trying to do. What do you think about it? Collecting feedback is second thing before you think of lab to market, because you should know whether what we have done can be 10 years old, or it can be like some research. Our university has some products which we have been researching since like last 20-30 years. So it is worth bringing up to the market even today. We should have the dare in us that we can do what we have done. What we have done is helpful to the community. And fourth, you have to have a partner from a marketing and a business perspective. MBA is essential. So if you have these people around you, you can easily translate what is in the lab, because there is no blueprint for any company. That's what you will learn in the moment you start a company. You will learn that there is no blueprint. There is no particular way a company should run, or that's how you will be successful. No. So you should build your own way. You have this team with you. Like for us, our university themselves created incubation center so that this can be translated. So that's what they did. So universities also should have a strong hold that it has to reach, or any research we do. Our policy was any research we do, any research topic we take, it should be helpful to the community. That's the, what do you say? It's a regulation in our university that Based on this only, we choose a research topic. So I think that's also one thing which helped us to, which will help everybody. If you have such regulation set from the beginning, it's easier to translate from lab to market.
Okay, thank you for sharing that perspective. That's a valuable insight. Building on that, I'd like to move to my next question. So, your
Yes.
work focuses heavily on millet and ancient grain technologies to create clean label, plant forward products. So, with,
Yes.
with global interest in function nutrition surging, what are the primary processing and shelf life optimization hurdles that early stage founders face when they try to scale native grains like millets into international cross border supply chains?
Okay, because now using preservatives are banned in many countries and people don't want preservative based foods. It's actually quite difficult to achieve a shelf life of a year, like how with a preservative. But there are natural antioxidants which are available, like marketed natural antioxidants, which can help you in extending the shelf life. Our products were 6 months stable, for example. We cannot export them because for an export quality, you need at least a year. So if you want to export, the first option is either you get a collaboration from a different country, you go and speak to the people from that country and start your own product there. Like you should be able to scale it up in that particular country, the raw material. And it is not a necessity that what I develop in India should be the same product that's selling in US. US have rye, they have other amaranth, they have so many quinoa, they have other nutri-cereals in there which is grown in their own country. So when you are expanding globally, it is also recommended that you use their own cereals or their own millets, their own pulses, whatever they grow there, and their own flavors. So that it's appealing to them, as well as your shelf life will not play a difficult thing because it's easier. You sell it in the 6 months. People like products which is a preservative free, even if it is for shorter shelf life, they will just purchase, eat, and go. So that is also an option. So you don't have to worry about the like shelf life is important. And when you choose processing methods, when you're starting a product itself, there are several processing methods which can extend the shelf life of a product. For example, roasting and popping reduces the moisture content of the grains, so that can extend the shelf life. So that's the first hurdle. The first hurdle is moisture, which helps in the which grows bacteria. So you have to cut down the first hurdle. You should understand, like how you understand a person in your life, you should understand the food. So you should relate to it in that sense that okay, what can I do that it will not harm the food but at the same time help it to be a better product. So in that sense, you should choose. There are several non-thermal techniques that has come up, thermal techniques that has come up, which can which is does not destroy the food, but at the same time helps in extending the shelf stability of the product. So first is raw material extension. You extend the shelf life of the raw material. Then once when you process them, you can bake them. Baking is one technique which is globally accepted technique, but at the same time extends the shelf life of the product. And when it comes to your packaging, choose the best packaging material you can. Tetra packs or three tri pack or anything that can help you in standardizing. And nitrogen flushing is another thing that is the, like when you talk about packaging, we have something called as control modified atmospheric packaging. So you modify the atmosphere inside the package by flushing in nitrogen air. So that will also extend the shelf life without adding any preservatives. These are few things that they can consider while they develop a product. And the product and process has to go hand in hand when you develop a product. So you think of all this and then you process it. That will be much better for anybody who is starting a new research to market, or the market people who are going to further develop other products.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. So, moving
Yes.
on to our next question. Global Nutripreneurs is deploying decentralized common facility centers to provide shared physical processing infrastructure. Given your expertise in food waste valorization and product development for MSMEs, how can we design these shared hubs to help small enterprises convert agricultural side streams and processing byproducts into high value functional ingredients, directly pushing toward our goal of a 40% reduction in post-harvest losses?
Yeah, my team has my colleague who is Dr. Alisha Pradhan, who is an expert in organic farming and also the post-harvest technology. So what she did in her research is to reduce the loss of post-harvest products, especially organic foods, which are like when you grow without any fertilizer or without any chemical, the shelf life goes down, even if it is a processed food or if it is a natural food. So when she worked, something interesting that I found was like her processing method was very simple. Like she has to just wash in a solution and then put it under radio frequency, and your product shelf life was extended. Like for example, she worked on tomatoes. Tomatoes don't stay for longer. She extended the shelf life to more than 2 months. For shelf life of a tomato can, and a fresh tomato, it stayed fresh for 2 months. So that is something that it didn't reach the community still. But these centers, whatever you're talking about, we also have thought of like how like IIMR as a center, or if it is like there are so many global centers that are available already. So if you are starting a center, it should be like make it available to anybody who comes in, and connect people like us to them, where we can help them in building their product or a process line. So we can tell, if when we connect to like when if you connect us with them, so we will develop the products for them using the technologies that you have inbuilt in your place. Like the global in the hub, whatever is available in the hub, we will set up a processing line accordingly to the MSMEs. And also, if you look at Manthan, if you have heard about Manthan, it's an initiative by the government. They are also doing the same thing. So they connect the new, like the entrepreneurs, they connect the like the mentors, they connect all these people in a very cost effective format. I mean, they charge nothing for you to connect from me to you, but at the same time they help the MSMEs to grow better, because they don't have a research facility. Most of the MSME doesn't have, and they cannot afford a very expensive research facility. So you connect us to them, like people like us. There will be many people who will be working in such formats. So we can help them to build their own value addition products, or their own processing line to reduce their post-harvest loss, or even the agriculture farming method. And then we can set up an MSME for them. They can come to your global hub, manufacture the product, and sell globally, locally, nationally, in any platform they want. I think that is one thing that we can work on. Like, and everybody should be contributing to India's growth in that way, or the global growth for that matter.
Thank you for highlighting that. So that
Yes.
leads us nicely to the next topic. So when introducing highly innovative science-backed functional foods to the market, regulatory compliance and health claim validations can become a massive bottleneck for lean startups. How can global nutripreneurs design its automated regulatory compliance hubs to better prepare founders for rigorous quality assurance, sensory analysis, and international food safety standards early in their development cycle?
Recently I came across a person from ICAR. They were developing an app that is helpful for you to know, if you enter your raw material, it will tell you what is the nutrition value, what are the processing, and if you enter an additive, it will tell you whether it is banned in India or abroad, USDA banned, or what are the effects of those. So there are several applications like this is already existing from the government perspective. It's not a personal thing, it's a government thing. So government gives it freely for everybody to test their products with them. There are so many government laboratories where they do the testing for at a very minimal cost. So look at those places and those people who will like have collaborations with government agencies, or the universities like us. We do most of it at a very low cost. Like it is, and if you have a collaboration with us, it is free of charge. Like some things are not charged at all. So there will be so many universities which is working, and clubbing with the universities is one very positive and a very essential thing for a startup, because you have a background from the science technology, as well as you will have mentors who can help you in mentoring how to build your scale up your startup with the regulatory aspects as well. Always have a friend who is a lawyer. That is another thing for your regulation. Or you should know the laws, and you should know what are the requirements currently FSSAI building. Keep yourself updated. FSSAI update everything in their portal, so they tell what to be used, what not to be used. They have given clear guidance for each and every grain additive or anything you take, milk, meat, any product you take, they have given the regulations. So look at the regulations already established, and USDA market also have established their requirements. Everybody has given, and if you want to know their nutritional value, all these are free. It's freely available on internet. In the era of AI, everybody knows how to use Google and how to use everything. So you can extract the information, learn enough before you step into the market. And whenever you need help, you just should reach out to people. There will be definitely people to help in all these aspects of regulation. Even if you want to know FSSAI, they have so many contacts given, the regulatory contacts. You can call them. They are available anytime. You ask them, we have a issue with so and so thing. They will definitely help you. Like I have myself used them. Like as a when I wanted to know about how do I sell millet-based products from lab to this market, we wanted to know, because in a laboratory circumstance it's extremely different from when you commercialize them, because the processing standards has to be high. It has to follow all the GMP, GHP, all the good manufacturing practices has to be followed, and you have to set up CCP control, critical control points where your product can go wrong. So everything they will explain you in a very detailed manner, and all these information are already available throughout. And my one strong suggestion is, do connect with universities. Not only our university, you can connect to any university. They will definitely help you how to scale and ask.
Those are some excellent points. So let's explore another important aspect. You perfectly embody the intersection of scientific rigor and entrepreneurial thinking. If Global Nutripreneurs is to nurture the next generation of elite food innovators, what is the single best mindset shift we need to foster in young food scientists to convert them from traditional researchers to high impact agri-food entrepreneurs?
Service to mankind. I think in one line, like you should have service to mankind. That's all. If you have the thought in you, then you a talented researcher can become a good entrepreneur as well. So I think that sums it all. Like you, we had a policy in our in like where we had studied, like as I said, love all and serve all. Service to humanity is all we have to do, and the only language that is existing in the is in the world is the language of love. So serve with love. So it'll definitely reach out with that mentality. You start anything, you can reach out globally. You can reach places where you will not even would have thought of when you started. So that is the only mentality you should have, and don't get put down by the big brands. Big brands can talk, but then you can still build your own.
I think that gives our audience a lot to reflect on. What an
Yes.
incredible masterclass of a conversation. Thank you for sharing your blueprints with us today. Your profound interests reinforce exactly why global entrepreneurs exist to bridge the critical gap between commercial profitability and sustainable social impact. To everyone tuning in across our global network, whether you're an innovator or investor or a policymaker, the path to plugging into this unified agri-food operating system is clear. For agri-food entrepreneurs and founders, stop struggling in isolation. Fast track your venture through our customized scaling pathways, leverage our AI-driven mentor matching, and utilize our automated regulatory compliance hubs to make your business cross-border ready. For aggregated investors, eliminate the noise of unvetted pipelines. Access our pre-evaluated investment-grade Nutri-Business directly through our integrated virtual deal room and secure a stake in the next era of health and wellness. For industrial and academic partners, collaborate with us. Let's unlock deep tech innovation through a global agri-food nutrition research and development forum and actively build a more equitable ecosystem by championing leadership at our Women in Food, Agriculture and Nutrition Forum. Together, we can maximize our global networks and deploy decentralized common facility centers to actively drive that 40% reduction in our global post-harvest food losses. The future of our global agri-food economy is no longer about survival. It is about sustainable nutrition, scientific excellence, and friction-free global trade. Visit globalnutripreneurs.com to secure your application, verify your venture, and claim your place in the future of food innovation. Thank you for joining us on Global Nutripreneurs. Until next time, keep innovating, keep scaling, and build with impact. Thank you so much, Dr. Saidarshi. It was a very informative session.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity given. Thank you.
I'm glad.